Oh, yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
So, I see you got the glasses on.
Yeah. It's snowing outside.
I don't know what that has to do with anything, but whatever.
It's snowing outside, you wear Hawaii clothes. That's how my family works.
So we're doing something different for this episode. We're going to be reviewing the first episode of a TV show. I guess that's sort of the idea I want to do with whenever we do watch a new TV series, is that we watch about like an hour and a half worth of the show and then give our impressions based on that.
Which works really well for this show.
So the show we're talking about is Sherlock, BBC Sherlock with
Benedict Cumberbatch
and Martin Freeman as Sherlock and Watson, respectively.
Mm-hmm. So, I haven't seen this show before, though it's been recommended to me a lot.
It's definitely popular. It's basically what gave Cumberbatch and Freeman their recent
big popularity boosts.
Yeah, like in the Hollywood movies, Hollywood blockbusters coming out recently.
Yeah.
Cumberbatch is in Star Trek Into Darkness and as playing Smaug in
The Hobbit, alongside
Hobbit.
Martin Freeman as Bilbo.
As Bilbo, yeah.
And he also plays Julian Assange in whatever that movie is.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it either. But
I've watched I've read a lot of Sherlock Holmes stuff coming into this. I lent you that book last night.
I didn't read any of it. But,
okay, that's fine.
But yeah, I have very little experience with Sherlock himself. Pretty much the bare minimum. I read the Baskerville. I think that's the most popular one. Is the Baskerville something. I can't remember what it was fully called. But something to do with that.
Before we get into this, did you like Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock?
The
Holmes?
The other blockbuster version of Sherlock Holmes. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really care, I guess. It didn't really...
There's also the version that's out now where Lucy Liu is Watson.
Right, there was the sequel.
That was the movie.
Oh, wait.
That's the other TV show going on right now.
Oh! Is that like, I guess, the American version? Or?
Yeah, kind of.
Because I know there's like...
I know very little about it other than Lucy Liu is Watson. And apparently it's really bad.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law watches it, and she thinks it's really bad. She watches trashy TV. So, even she admits it. But you didn't really take anything big away from
Robert Downey Jr.? Nah, I mean, it was still a fun movie, but I mean, that's a totally different thing anyways, I guess.
I like to compare it against...
It's nice to compare. That's actually one thing I want to say about the show. As far as all the different versions I've seen of Sherlock Holmes, this one's, like, Benedict Cumberbatch has actually got to be my favorite version. Like, he seems to...
He really gets
perfectly fit the role. And same with Martin Freeman as Watson. They seem to perfectly fit their roles. And that's one thing I'll definitely give to this show, is just they got the perfect actors for it.
Yeah. Cumberbatch is... I don't really like Cumberbatch. At all.
Yeah.
But he works in this role so well.
Mm-hmm.
he just has all these little mannerisms that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays Sherlock Holmes. You're not really actually supposed to like Sherlock Holmes. He's a dick. He's a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
He's full of himself. You know, he's a sociopath.
Mm-hmm.
Which
he freely admits to in the
he
show.
will freely admit to in the show. I'm not a psychopath. I'm a high-functioning sociopath or something like that. Know the difference.
But yeah, that's the one thing keeping me in the show is actually just the actors in it.
Yeah, and I love the Watson in this version.
Right.
I really like.
Mm-hmm.
He plays it really well.
I like that bit of backstory they got with coming back from the war.
Yeah, the connection with Afghanistan. In the original one, it was in India, back when Britain controlled the Indian subcontinent.
Yeah.
But I love how they do it. I love how he has this, as long as he's with Holmes, he doesn't need his cane. He's just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm right back in it. This is awesome. And he just comes back to life in this wonderful way.
Yeah, and I definitely like that little, just the way they pointed out. He wasn't traumatized by the war. He missed it. He wanted to get back into action, and that was the thing that was missing from his life. I really liked that little twist because it opens up with him talking with a therapist.
Yeah.
And she's trying to calm him down, trying to reintegrate him back with into society. And it's just, and that's what's causing his limp. It's just being away from the war is just caused.
It's just a psychosomatic thing.
Yeah.
And so
his reason for joining Sherlock in his adventures, it makes sense. It's what he truly wants. So I thought that was
one thing that I had a little bit of trouble with was it a lot of the time the dialogue went by really fast,
mm-hmm.
which you kind of expect for this kind of thing.
Yeah,
Sherlock is supposed to be really brainy and fast talking,
mm-hmm.
which doesn't always work. It's hard to make it work.
Right. Yeah.
And they pulled it off all right.
Yeah.
In some parts are better than others.
Mm-hmm.
During the start, I know you definitely did. I, not quite as much, had a problem with how Holmes starts off having more... It's less like he's super smart and more like he just has super senses. Or like...
Yeah,
it's the fine line of perception.
Mm-hmm.
Of... Yes, if you notice all of these, then you can put two and two together and you have to be perceptive.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that, and then there's what he was doing, which was a little bit over the top, a little bit superhuman.
That was the
but
thing.
In the wrong way.
He's mentioning, when he's mentioning the...
Was it the phone?
The phone, yeah. When he was mentioning the alcoholism, and it was like he noticed all the scratches around the charge cable, which signifies... It was like, how the fuck did you...
Some of the conclusions that he came to were a bit far.
No, it was just he was pointing out things that like no human would notice. It was just all these minute details that just... That was my only thing, was like... This isn't...
Even when reading the books, it was a lot more like, oh, how did he figure it out? Oh, he noticed this, he looked at that, he took a second here to
mm-hmm.
not... in the book there would be... In the stories there would be, oh, he'd pause here and he wouldn't say anything, but he would look inquisitive, or he would...
Mm-hmm. He was pondering something, I guess.
Yeah, or he would be furiously working away at something,
mm-hmm.
and it would give, like, little tiny clues. But in this, sometimes it feels more like it's just jumping there. It's just, all of a sudden he knows this information, instead of
mm-hmm.
slowly building it up.
But again, Again, my experience with Sherlock is quite minimum. I've only read the one book, but when he was pointing out these clues, they weren't, or it was like when he brought them up, it was like, oh, that's obvious. I can see how you can make those connections. They weren't such minor details. It wasn't like something. It's hard to think of an example, I guess, but it just made sense when in the book when he pointed it out. It seemed like one of those things that people would notice, but they just wouldn't think of. And Sherlock was the only one that was going, "Hey, this small thing, this minor detail,
the details matter."
That everyone did notice, but they just weren't thinking of it. He was the only one that was actually thinking, "Oh, there's actually more meaning to this."
It was So it's what you're saying is it's the difference between details matter and noticing every single thing that goes on.
Yeah.
Like, and having spidey senses, essentially.
Basically, yeah.
What did you think of the episode Villain?
That's one thing I'd actually mark against this episode is actually the mystery itself, the writing involved with the mystery itself. The villain, they were sort of building up, or they were treating him like he was some sort of genius, this genius whose potential just wasn't used, I guess. But I don't know. I guess my thing, the biggest plot hole for me, I guess, is that he's the taxi driver that happens to be a genius. So I was like, sure, okay, but he was being paid to kill people. I guess my question is, like, how did Moriarty find this guy to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we're talking about an unassuming taxi driver. How would... I mean, maybe that's something they'll explain later, but again, it was... when I first saw it, it was like, how the hell did Moriarty even find this guy to begin with? It just seems like...
I wouldn't... That's not something that I would really...
But there were other details that I can create sort of reasons why that he would do this. For example, the other thing that bugged me was why the taxi driver took the girl's phone, and it's the only reason I can come up with is he was making an intentional mistake for Sherlock to find him.
Oh, no.
Because he literally has no reason to take that phone.
Actually, well, they kind of explain it. I mean, she originally purposefully left it on him. And then when he noticed... I believe... We watched this last night, so I may be a bit hazy on the details, but as I recall, when he noticed that Sherlock was looking for him, he went, "Oh, this, it's an honor to finally get Sherlock. I can trap him," and so that's why he kept it. Yeah, to lure Sherlock in.
That's what I mean, is he kept the phone intentionally to let Sherlock find him. That's what I mean. It's like, he could have... I mean, I guess he had a death wish anyways because of the whole aneurysm thing. But again, it's like... Well, yeah, technically, Sherlock never would have found him if he didn't take the phone.
Yeah.
Which, again, it just... I don't know. Just small gripes like that. And there are a bunch of other things that... kind of annoyed me as well. For example, the dying message that the woman left to begin with is like, the cops were assuming, because she didn't finish spelling Rachel, she only had, what was it? They assumed it was Rosh or Rock or whatever.
She didn't finish the word, she dropped off the L, so it looked like the German word Rach.
For revenge, which is like, why would you assume that? Why would she spell revenge as her dying message? That doesn't make any sense. Of course she was trying to spell Rachel. And I don't know, the cops, everyone... it seemed like in order to make Sherlock seem smart, they had to dumb everyone down. And another example of this is when they're at the restaurant, or they're heading to the restaurant, Sherlock mentions whoever the killer is, it has to be someone that's able to hunt in public and someone that people wouldn't assume. So the first thought that comes to my head was a police officer, which that was like the first kind of person I was expecting. But then they brought up the taxi driver, or the taxi cab, and I was like, oh, a taxi driver, that makes sense. So then they go through all this trouble of chasing the taxi driver through the city, and when they get to it, they interrogate the passenger. And it was like, wait, why? You had this whole line of reasoning earlier about a public person that's able to hunt in, or like, yeah. Sorry, like, he made sense earlier, but then when it came to it, he dropped the subject entirely. And I just had to ask myself, why were they chasing the taxi cab to begin with? Why did they assume that the passenger was the killer?
Well, I fell into the trap. Because, I mean, part of me wants to give them the benefit of the doubt, or whatever. Part of me also says, I'm only doing that because I fell for the trap, which was to put all this action there, so that when they get there and open the door, you've forgotten that, it could have been the driver. They get there and they're, I wasn't thinking about the driver. I was thinking, maybe he's using taxis as a way to, cover his tracks. But that, I am no Sherlock Holmes. That's for sure.
True enough. I mean, he did sort of play it off when they got back home at the apartment. Sherlock mentioned something about proving a point to Watson, and that was the fact that Watson no longer needed his cane to move around, which is like, okay, I guess that was going on. Like that was why Sherlock was chasing after the taxi cab. But then it turns out the cab driver was the guy he was, like, they were supposed to be going after, and he ends up following them.
I didn't really notice that.
That was the thing, is the driver was the guy that they were chasing, and then he followed Sherlock home, and I thought maybe Sherlock was tricking him again, but it wasn't until they had like this minute-long mind-blow moment for Sherlock, which was like, dude, I figured this out 10, 15 minutes ago when you first chased the guy. Why are you having this mind blow now? Why are you having this revelation now? I don't know, my issue is...
That mind-blowing part.
That one I just thought was...
It was very overblown.
Mm-hmm.
It did not deserve that.
Yeah.
And, what for me was the mind-blowing part was when, so for those who haven't seen it, halfway through the episode, a gentleman comes in and...
Oh, right.
I want to say kidnap, but it's not quite the word.
No, he coerces Watson into...
Yeah, coerce is a much better word. And he meets this gentleman, and you think it's Moriarty.
Because he's acting all sinister, he's not giving his name.
He even calls himself...
He's an arch enemy of Sherlock.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, they're really bringing him out now, this early? And then the taxi driver says that, he's been hired by this Moriarty.
Yeah, to kill people.
Which is actually the first time that you get the name.
Mm-hmm.
And then, right at the end, this gentleman comes up and he reveals that he's Mycroft, Sherlock Holmes' brother.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh my god, you've...
Yeah, they did...
for the trap.
They did a little trick in there. But yeah, no, then they had they had the game between the cab driver and Sherlock, which
Did he ever explain?
well
Even when he was dying, I don't think he explained.
Well, no, he didn't get the answer if Sherlock was right about which pill was the good and bad one. I originally, when he placed the two bottles down, I instantly thought of the Fezwick challenge from Princess Bride.
Fezwick is
Or
not the right one.
Hmm?
Fezwick is Andre the Giant.
What was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, the smart guy from Princess Bride. The challenge that him and Dread Pirate Roberts had with the two wine bottles. One of them has the poison in it, the other one doesn't. And it's basically sort of a mind game thing. Of course, the twist was that
Both of them were the poison, and
were
he was
poisoned.
immune to it.
Yeah, which is what I thought was going on with the two pills. But when they brought up the aneurysm, then I was like, okay, so maybe
he does have a death wish.
Yeah, maybe he does. Maybe there is a good and bad pill, and that was the one thing that they didn't answer.
But yeah, you never learn which one was which.
Yeah, so that was kind of annoying, but like I get it too. It sort of shows that Sherlock isn't always going to win. It sort of shows the audience like he's not going to have every victory. He does have a major flaw, and that's his obsession with puzzles and finding I guess the truth about them. And it's sort of like he has a very obsessive, competitive side.
Mm-hmm.
He has to prove that he is superior.
Definitely. I love his little quips whenever everybody else is just not understanding what he's getting at. And he just looks at them and he's like, "Oh my god, it must be so boring in your little brains." Or other various quips, and I'm like, "You're such a dick, and I hate you, but at the same time I'm supposed to hate you. And it's done in a good way, so I really like you, but
it's the whole magnificent bastard thing."
Mm-hmm. The plot writing was not completely up to snuff.
No.
The character writing was very well done,
mm-hmm.
which is something I'm noticing a lot in our reviews that we've been mentioning, is that the characterization of all of the things that we've seen recently is really good.
Mm-hmm. But I definitely do want to keep watching Sherlock. I love the acting. I love the character interactions. I really hope the writing picks up as far as the mysteries go. That's where I am on that subject. But whether I'll actually watch the entire series, that's the thing is, if it doesn't pick up, I'm not sure if I'll.
Well, the nice
past
thing is
the
that
first
each season is only 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah,
and I really like their format with it being almost more like movies, like a series. Like it's more. Every season is a trilogy of movies.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't really have much else to say.
I've pretty much said my piece.
All right. Cheers. See you next time.
See ya. But this was written by like the actual the author though, Sir Malcolm McDoyle or what? Isn't that? No, or am I completely?
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Sorry, it's not. I don't know why.
This BBC Sherlock isn't written by him.
No, I'm talking about the book.
Yes, the book is the original stories of Sherlock.
Yes.
Yes.
I was talking.
Okay.
Never mind.
All right. A little confused there.